Hello, everyone. Welcome to Embracing Change in Midlife with Ava Amsler and Michelle Stanley. My name is Virginia Shingleton, and I'm a volunteer with the National Flute Association. If this is your first time attending an NFA event, then I would like to personally welcome you to this flute community. The NFA was founded in 1972 and has since grown to become one of the world's largest flute organizations with members from all 50 states and countries across the globe. We invite you to visit our website, nfaonline.org, and learn more about us and how you can become involved. We'd also like to acknowledge that today's online event is made possible with support from our members, our donors, and the Illinois Arts Council Agency. Thank you, and now I will hand it over to Ava and Michelle.
Thank you so much, Virginia, and thank you, NFA, for having this really fantastic series going on. I'm very happy, together with Michelle, to be on it the first time. And I think we're both very excited to see already so many participants in the Zoom room. I welcome you all very, very much. And also want to give you a little overview of what we're going to do today. So we thought that Michelle and my story will be really helping us to show you how you can go through that midlife part, or even like I'm now in retirement part, because it's in a certain way the same procedure or structure you can use. And so we both will tell our stories, and then from there get the tools for you to kind of like find your way and navigate through your midlife. We do this with questions. So we give you some questions to think about. So if you have a pencil and a paper ready, that would be fantastic. Then we have a couple of exercises. And we also have, like, for the future, you know, after this workshop is over, or then, of course, you will not know what's next in midlife, but it should kick like a ball, and you should have some more to look for after the workshop. So we have something prepared for you can take with you. And then we are ready for questions. I hope in the very end you will have some questions for us, and also you can always put them in the chat. Virginia is going to look for us at these questions, and then in the very end tell us what they are. So that's the overview, and I give it to Michelle, who is going to do the next step.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Michelle Stanley, and I've been a member of the NFA for my entire professional life. And it's kind of a wonderful full circle moment to think that I'm now joining my good friend Ava in a conversation about mid and later life and embracing change. So you're going to, as she said, we're going to give you kind of some touches on different aspects of going into midlife and later in life as a musician, as a flutist. We don't directly talk about some of the physical things that might happen. You're welcome to ask us that at the end. This is more about life journey and maybe change that might be happening for you, how to find joy and how to find fulfillment as your career might change, or maybe you're just looking for something new and something fresh. So that's what the direction of this class is. But you know, feel free to ask questions, and I'm sure the community of incredible flutists in the room right now will have lots of things to share. So I'm going to give you one little Zoom direction if you want to do this. Up in the upper right is the view button in the top of the right corner of Zoom. When I share the screen, if you go to that view, you can do a little side by side so you can see us speaking a little bit larger than those tiny little squares with the PowerPoint. Up to you. That's how it will record for the NFA. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint. Okay, everyone see that okay? Couple nods. Great, thank you. So if you wouldn't mind, our first thing to do, if you would, is to put into the chat your name, where you are geographically in the country, or if you're outside the country, where you are in life, midlife, early life, approaching later life, or whatever language you want to use to describe yourself. And perhaps at the very end, we would love to know what you hope to get from this class, and maybe some of the things that you're thinking about and what made you think about coming to this class today. So if you would do that for us, that would be great. I won't be able to see them right now, but Ava will be able to see them in Virginia. We'll look at them towards the end of the class. I'll give you just a minute to pop that in there.
I think it's very interesting that normally we don't ask the question where you are in life. We ask where you come from, we ask where do you work. And so in the very end, this is an identity question, right? And so to acknowledge where you are in your life, I think it's just already a different step in a direction which we hope to lead this class.
Exactly. You're going to hear that theme of identity quite a bit because it factors in to my story, which I'm about to share with you, but it will factor into Ava's story as well about who we are and who we want to be and where we see ourselves interacting in our musical spaces, our flute spaces, and in our life spaces. Okay, so I'm going to assume you're all going ahead and popping that in there. So we are going to get started with my story. So I wanted to share with you, we're going to share with you each of our journeys in hopes that maybe you see yourselves and reflected in some of the issues that we have dealt with, and then ways that we tried to work through this on our own personal lives. So my synopsis of my flute story is that for the last 27 years, I have been maybe even longer now, but I've been a college flute professor. So I did the degrees and I just always imagined that I would just continue to play. I really didn't have a plan for my life. I didn't go to graduate school or undergrad even knowing what I was going to do. I had kind of a blissful ignorance of how my jobs were going to unfold. And I think that blissful ignorance came out in the fact that I didn't really worry about what was going to happen, but it ended up working out. That was just lucky. But my first job right out of while I was in graduate school, I got my first college teaching job. So for about 27 years, I taught at 3 different universities. I was adjunct, hoping for a tenure track job, which did happen. And I am currently at the job where I got a tenure track job and got associate professor and full professor. And I'm at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is in the northern part of the state. So I was hired as an assistant professor in 2009, got associate professor in 2016. And if my memory serves, which I was trying to remember the date, I think I got up to full just a few years ago in 2022. I've had a pretty, for me and for and for some young girl not having wild aspirations, I've had an incredible career that I'm really proud of. With recordings and international travel as a performer, I've been able to build a studio of really extraordinary human beings, been able to grow as a teacher, and I'm really proud of that work. And it became a really big part of who I was, my identity. I saw myself not only in my work, but in my personal life as a flutist. I'm a flutist, I'm a flute player, I'm a flute teacher. Band directors knew me, my flute community knew me. I go to NFA, I've got wonderful friends. We all know each other in this realm. And that became who I was. I always wanted to say that I wasn't just a flutist, I had a richer life outside of that. But the honest truth was that's who I was. And that's who I enjoyed being. So in 2018, I would call a tap on the shoulder from my dean. And the dean is of the College of Liberal Arts. And he asked me if I would become the director of a fledgling arts management program at my university. It was a program I had actually been a part of starting as a young professor, but had not been a part of for quite some time. And it took me 5 months to give that poor man an answer because I had no idea if it was something I wanted to do. Mostly because I was scared I was going to lose that identity. I'm a flutist, I'm a flute player. I love the flute. I love my students. My students are desperately important to me. They are part of my, my larger flute family. And if I went into something else, would I lose that part of myself? And I honestly, I was in my mid 40s when this happened. And I thought, well, does that mean my flute playing side is done? What does it mean to add something to your life a little earlier than you planned? Because I think I always thought I would do something interesting out, like in addition to music, maybe in administration, but I saw that like more at age, well, in my 50s, which is where I'm at now. And so I decided to go ahead and try this because, and you'll see this theme come back, I wanted to dip my toe into something new, but I didn't have to lose the other part. And I think in midlife, we start to think, maybe I have other things I want to do, but I'm too worried and afraid to do that. What will happen? So my version of my midlife change and the shift was dipping my toe into the ocean. So dipping my toe meant, let's just try out this admin world. Let's see what it's like. And I could keep my whole flute studio. I had to hire a second person to come in to help me a little bit, but I was able to do it. I was able to still keep playing. I was recording, I was traveling. And then another 4 years of that went by, and I really liked the work. And so my identity started to shift, and I was feeling okay about it, but still a little nervous. In 2022, I was offered a position as the chair of the music department, which is about 85 faculty here at CSU. And I was excited. I was ready to go. So I jumped in. I would say I put a leg in to the ocean. Did that for a year before a higher level position opened up. And it was an associate dean job in the College of Liberal Arts, where I would be in charge of undergraduate education. I applied for that job and interviewed, got the job. And within 9 months, my provost tapped me on the shoulder and said, would you be the interim vice provost for undergraduate affairs at Colorado State for as long as it takes to find a replacement? And I jumped at that. So right now I'm vice provost. I'll go back to being associate dean in May. This to say that everything that I imagined midlife to be, and we have this vague understanding of what is midlife, what is later in life. Everything I imagined it to be happened way sooner. And over the course of the last 5 years, I have come to completely love the work. And I have actually let go of my flute studio. I play my flute, not as often as I did. I'm actually okay with that. I've done the things. And so over time, making peace with a fair amount of therapy, I was able to find my new path and rediscover who I am based on the strengths that I had built unbeknownst to myself. So what was so interesting is that toe dip turned into a little leg dip. I would say I'm fully in the ocean now, but that took me some time to really say it's okay to let go and it's okay to try something else. And maybe you'd be okay with the new work. So I want to share with you, let's see here, get you. So here is some questions. So this is the first part of you being involved in this. I'm going to take on the first 2 points, and then you are going to hear from Ava with the last part, so number 3. So I'd like you to, if you would, rate your professional fulfillment on a scale from 1 to 10. Now, if you're already retired, substitute that with your life fulfillment within music, if you're happy with where you are. Rate it from a scale from 1 to 10, if you would. And you can just do it in your head. You can write it down for later contemplation.
You
Now,
also can share it in the chat.
Yeah, you can share this in the chat if you'd like, if you're feeling like you want to share outwardly. Then I want you to think about why you chose the number you chose. So for instance, if you were feeling like a 1 to a 5, that's kind of interesting. If you're a 5 to a 10, that's kind of interesting too. Now I want you to think about, are you feeling are these feelings? I feel unfulfilled. I'm feeling unhappy. I'm feeling joyful. Or are you feeling like I want to make more money? I want to use another part of my brain. I want to feel useful in another way, because those are really different. One is a little bit more tangible and one is a little bit more based on feelings. And it's going to help you figure out how to transition, whether we like it or not. We all transition through this part of life, with how you're going to transition and how you're going to embrace that and how you're going to change it if you would like to change that. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to you, Ava.
Yeah. So the third question would be, or asking you to write down 3 dreams for your professional life that you would like right now. So take a moment and just what pops up first in your head, not even thinking about it, let your intuition speak. and write down 3 dreams.
And this could be dreams for retirement. This could be dreams for daily fulfillment. We wrote the word professional, and I'm realizing it's not meant to be career-based. This isn't just meant to be life-based.
And again, if you would like to, you can share it in the chat. And then you see that my story has a completely different picture. So the ocean with a ship in the middle. And I want to start a little early with my story. So when I was young, I had a dream, like with 12, 13, that I want to play in the orchestra. I wanted to be the silver lining on the top of the orchestra. That was my dream. And of course, I went through my studies and everything, and I actually landed a top job with 25 in the St. Gallen Symphony, which was, of course, great. And I enjoyed playing in the orchestra, but I had a couple of other dreams. Like one was also like going to the US and also like sharing with as many people as I can my knowledge and my gifts. So in the course of the next 20 years, I was in the orchestra till I was 45. And at the side, like 2 years later, like with 27, I started teaching at the conservatory in Austria. And this job, I first said, oh, I'm not sure if I want this, I will not stay in St. Gallen, as we sometimes then think when we are young, that we easily get another job. So it was really good for me during the orchestra time to have this other like fulfilling teaching position. And it prepared me for what came later. And of course, you don't know that in life, that things prepare you for the next step. So around 40, I started feeling that I was not having enough freedom in the orchestra. I really liked to be there for the great moments where everything works the best, and sitting in that vibe of the music and of all the instruments around you was really fantastic. Also, the challenges with playing and everything was wonderful. But I played a lot in the pit. And there you're really like in the chain of like either the singer, the conductor, the solo oboist. And you're always in this chain in like doing your musical work. And it didn't feel free enough. And of course, you also don't have a lot of space in the pit, and you don't have a lot of good air in the pit. And you also don't have like enough light for your eyes. So I started really having glasses too. So all of this made me just starting thinking, and I told people I will not be in the orchestra any longer, I will quit. And they started making fun of me after about 3 years, where I kept saying that. And then I had an idea to write a pedagogical book. And I wrote that to a friend of mine. And the day, I still remember it clearly, the day when he wrote back and said, hey, you write a book, that's fantastic, I want to read it. How things then after 5 years completely shifted for me. And I had the security and the inner knowing, this is right. I need to change my career. At this time I was married. So I quit the orchestra, I retired from the orchestra. Quit is not quite the right word because I liked it. So I retired from it and I started teaching more, and my career took off. Like I started to go to Japan and travel the world, Bolivia, the first time US. So I also went the first time to FSU at this time to play in the artist series. So it was kind of like, really seemed to be a beautiful life, but then I got a divorce. And that gets me to where Michelle said before, like the insecurities, the fears, like suddenly I didn't have that security any longer. I had to drive my life by myself. I had to kind of financially be independent and all of that. And in this time, I had tried a couple of times to go to the US, but it didn't work out. I got this offer from Florida State to come for a year and teach there. And the interesting thing is, the answer was so clear in myself. I had to say yes. And that's the picture you see. I jumped into the ocean and tried then my little boat, to kind of steer it in all the weathers, which we have in Florida sometimes. Actually, FSU is a great place to be. I didn't have hurricanes in my professional life. So just to make sure that you understand that. That was the big step. I was 47 when I came to the US. So in the middle of my life, right after a divorce. And it was a big chance, but I jumped in and I just closed my eyes and then started swimming. But I never, ever regretted it. With all the changes and all like the experience I had to make also with failures, you know, that's part of it, that you have to try new things in a new country. Even a language was new. Students didn't understand my accent, whatever, you know, but I had help. I was supported by the faculty at FSU. The Woodin faculty at FSU always were around me. I always could ask. So I think that's another big thing, that you actually really can ask for help and have the right people around you to then overcome the challenges. And that's one of the big things, I think, as a tool, that we have to jump into the ocean or tiptoe, but still the fears will be there and the insecurities will be there too. So all my dreams in a certain way came together. So I wanted to share with more people. I wanted to go to the US, and I wanted to be a teacher with a bigger school. After I left the orchestra, I really wanted a bigger school. And it worked all out in the US. And I think my procedure was kind of like really these dreams inside. And then like also writing these dreams down and reading them every single night, and they came true. So I have more experience like that. At the time when I did this, nobody talked about manifestation and that you can do this kind of thing, but it worked for me, and I'm still very grateful for that. Being in retirement now, I'm doing the same thing again, but in a very different way. Now I'm tiptoeing. So I'm not like jumping in. I'm retired, but you know, what do I do next is still like very open, or I'm still in a process to learn more about that. So it can be both in your life, or it can be in the middle somewhere. But I still think it needs courage and it needs like patience. So I think these two stories, whether you dip with your toe or you jump in the ocean, I don't know if we have a slide for that. For that one sentence is, it's that might be something you want to think about, and that leads to what we give you in the end, like a self-assessment, because who are you? What is your way to do things? Are you a risk taker? Are you somebody who needs to have more security? And that's all completely fine. But it's good to know yourself really well in order to go forward in many, many aspects. So for that, I would like to do an exercise with you. And it's an exercise I did often with my students. It comes from dynamic integration. And if you just sit on your chair and you feel your feet, this is an exercise when you feel that you get like anxious or nervous about your career, about the finances of it, about the insecurity in leaving your job or doing something new. It's really important that you're grounded. And this exercise helps you to ground. So if you have your feet on the floor and you feel your feet, what's the difference between thinking your feet and feeling your feet? So make sure that you really feel your feet or are aware that you actually think your feet. Where is this? Is the left foot touching the floor? Is more the outside or more the toe or more the heel or the inside? And how about the right foot? Do you feel it the same way as the left foot, or is it different? And then when you really feel your feet on the floor, you know the spot which is not touching the floor, the arch. And think that you would have a little flashlight there. The flashlight is pointing towards the earth, and you kind of like root into the earth with this light. And then when you can clearly feel how you're rooted into the earth, gets your left leg, the energy from the earth up to your left leg, to your right, left knee, to your left hip, to your left shoulder, then go over to the right side. Is the energy down to your right hip, down to your right knee, and down to the earth through your right foot. And you go again with the left one. The energy comes up to your left foot, to your left knee, to your left hip, to your left shoulder. It flows over to the right shoulder. It goes down to the right hip, to the right knee, and down into the earth again. And one more. We go up, left foot with the energy coming up to the left knee. It flows up to the left hip and comes up to the left shoulder. It flows over to the right shoulder and flows down to the left hip, right hip, and to the right knee, and goes back into the earth. Now just feel for a moment how you breathe, how your thoughts are, and then also how your emotions are. And notice for yourself if there's a difference from before and now. And maybe there is, maybe not. This is one exercise. If you train your body to kind of recognize it again and again, it will go faster that you can earth and be grounded, and then have access to both of your brain parts, the left and the right brain part. When you are in fear, very often one brain part is not working exactly like it could work, and they don't work as well together. Another exercise, especially to go into your heart, I think we all in between know heart-brain coherence is really the big thing today. It's not only our intellectual brain, we need our heart, and even in our heart there are brain cells. So get you both of your hands on your heart, and then we do a breathing exercise. Inhale for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for a moment, then exhale through your mouth longer than you inhale. It doesn't matter how long it goes, I don't count. Inhale again for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for a moment and exhale through your mouth loudly. And once more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on for a moment and exhale longer than you inhale. This is connecting you to your heart. So when you feel that you're only in your brain, of course, it helps to feel your feet. But when you really want to be sure to go to your heart, then you have your hand on your heart and you do a breathing exercise like that. There are many other things you could do, but that's a really short one and one which is easy to do. Again, how do you feel now? Might be you want to share it in the chat, or you just write it down for yourself. And then I give it over to Michelle.
Thank you. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how I was starting to enter midlife, and the ways that I was going through some of the challenges that I was feeling. And, I mentioned that we weren't going to talk so much about the physical things, but let's all acknowledge that our bodies change almost daily, and it's humbling. From arthritis, which I've been dealing with, to just maybe our backs aren't as strong as they used to be, or maybe our breath feels differently, or maybe we just don't feel like we're playing the same way. And so these can be really humbling moments. And I want to acknowledge that because it's something that might come up a little bit later when we open up the conversation for all of us. So one of the ways that I like to process through some of these challenges as I'm thinking about embracing midlife and I'm embracing what's going to be in my life in another 10 years is I tend to process, well, I will say I process when I walk. So the follow footsteps is a really important aspect of thinking things through for me, but I tend to write things down. So I think I wanted to share with you some of the ways that I processed through change, both physical and both maybe not having as much flute playing in my life as I did. And of course, there was a career change in there too. I tended to write down my worries, my fears, my insecurities. What could possibly go wrong? What were the cons? And sometimes just acknowledging them and seeing them in front of me made them seem a little smaller, made them seem a little bit more, seem like something I could take control of. But then I wrote on the other side things that I was really excited about. What was possible if I moved into change? What was possible as I moved into mid and later life? I was more reflective. I had a broader sense of experience. I had been through more things. I could probably know how to problem solve a little bit better. I certainly had a greater sense of peace in who I was. I've gotten this far. I can probably do whatever's next for me. So I wrote down the fears and insecurities. I wrote down the things that were going to get better, the things that could get better, the things that could get better with change. And then when by looking at them side by side, it felt like it was a more digestible set of experiences that I was about to embark on. And I felt a little braver trying to get into the next step of my personal life. We put these two things up here because we wanted you to think about, if you talk about dreaming, if you envision it, it's possible, but so I'll read it out loud so it's correct. If you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible, but if you schedule it, it's real. And we wanted you to really feel the joy in getting older, the joy of being focused, the joy of having peace of mind, and the acceptance of who we are. We've all been through quite a bit of years by now. And so it's really okay to embrace this new part of our lives and let the fear and insecurity go away, because we're coming to it with a wealth of experiences from our lives. Let's see, the next thing we wanted to talk to you about is rewards. And we're going to leave some time here for conversation, because I really want to make sure we hear from you and what your experiences are and what kind of questions you have, because your stories are really different than ours. So, but I love this picture. I think, Ava, is this your kitchen with the cookies that you made?
Yes. Yeah.
She sent me this picture to include, and I thought, I'm going to include a slide of cookies. And I thought, we were talking yesterday at length about rewarding ourselves when we reach these milestones. Like, I reached a milestone of when arthritis was kicking in. I actually jerry-rigged, and if you've seen some of our lectures at conventions, you've seen this before, but I jerry-rigged a thing for my flute so that I could play it again. Man, I should have rewarded myself. And actually I did, because I started playing flute even more. After having so much pain in my thumbs that I was having a really hard time holding the instrument up, the reward was being back to playing again, because I figured out how to play my flute again. Rewards of like letting go. I don't play the flute every single day anymore. But I rewarded myself last week. I don't think I've even told Ava this. I just bought a new head joint last week. And I was thinking, why should I buy myself a head joint? I don't play as much. I don't do as many concerts. And then I thought, because I've got this new cool job and I really love it. And I really want to love playing again. So these are like some silly little rewards, but it's really important that we do this for ourselves as we're heading into this part of our lives.
I want to say a very different example. Like, I told you that I was getting a divorce before I came to America, and I was really hoping to get a peaceful divorce. And when I got that peaceful divorce, I rewarded myself. So, like, I felt that my divorce was my failure, but I felt also like I got in peace through it. So I really wanted to reward myself for that and celebrate with myself. So I went to a restaurant by myself and ate like 4 courses or something like that, and toasted with glasses of wine to myself. So it can be like, also when you have a failure, in each failure, there is a seed for progress. So we shouldn't forget that. It's totally okay to feel like that, but then we still can say, but I got through it, in my case, with peace, in peace with my ex. And so now I need to see what's next. And I can also kind of celebrate a new begin, like also a head joint is kind of a new begin. It's kind of like, I buy the head joint because also I'm in a different phase of life. And like Michelle said, to embrace that different phase of life is one of the biggest things, besides going through the fears and acknowledging the fears, which might be sometimes hard, because fears can be very sneaky. They can lie underneath whatever. And it's not only being nervous and anxious, it can have all kinds of phases, exactly like stage anxiety has too. So to recognize the fear and then to acknowledge it and see that there's always joy in life and we always have something to celebrate, I think is a big part of this transition.
Great. So here, this is our final slide. So I'm going to stop sharing here in a minute, though our emails are on there. And we'll pop them in the chat as well so that you have them. And if we'd love for you to reach out and continue conversations with us. But there's also a beautiful little quote on the right. Let yourself be silently drawn to the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. So I'm going to stop sharing in the hopes that you will be willing to have a conversation with us. So it's nice to see the things in the chat at this moment. I wonder if you might want to share some of the things you're thinking about, where you are in your life, what drew you to come to this class, what are you looking for? Feel free to just
Michelle,
unmute.
you could also read some. I cannot see the chat, but you could read some of it.
I can. Hoping to hear from experts who have gone through changes in career and activities. Curious how you make decisions about what directions to take. I love thinking about what is next in general. I'm curious how others evolve. Near retirement, how I used to practice does not work as well and need more repetition. Oh, that is the truth.
Can I say
Yeah.
something about that? Since I'm already retired and I had my 70th birthday in January, so I think I can talk to that. I think that's true, like arthritis or whatever we have, or shorter breaths, or but I also think we have to be careful to not think that we get older and it gets worse. I think partly is in our head. So being very careful in kind of, okay, what's actually really not going that well, and what is just an expectation of myself because I'm getting older, it gets harder. Or I had a colleague in the orchestra, he always said, I'm more nervous since I'm older. I don't experience that. I don't experience being more nervous. Of course, I have arthritis not in my hands, but in my legs, so I cannot walk that well. So I don't say age is nothing, but it's just also like having really being clear what you think. And we didn't talk so much about that earlier, like what Michelle like introduced, like with the worries, and then like who you would like to be or what you can reach when you actually walk through the fears. It's so important how you word things and what you think. So if you start observing your thoughts and you have a thought like you are 40 and you think, oh, when I'm 50, I have to practice more. Or I'm not sure if people still like my sound, or whatever you think when you get older, what your fear is about, then be aware about it, and then think, how would you like to feel when you are older? And then feed yourself with this. I want to feel alive and still be able to play all the pieces I want to play. I have more choices. I don't need to play anything. That's a really big difference. And I want to still share my musical ideas and my emotions and my wisdom in a certain way. With 70 and white hair, you can say that, like with an audience, you know? So whatever you feel it's appropriate for you. And I don't think you have to be just a positive thinker like crazy, but know what you think. And when it's negative, you can think, is that what I want? What do I really want? And then word it carefully. And every time when you catch yourself, you can replace that thought with a positive thought or with what you really want. It's not even a positive thought. It might be what you really want. If you don't know what you really want, this exercise is fantastic. But you know what? It needs time and silence. Might be a walk is good too.
I want to bring up I think Katie brought it up, midlife, practicing during a busy life and owning a business and putting together a flute choir. Let's talk about practicing for a minute, because I think Ava and I are we're very close friends, but we're also very different in how we approach things. But we have this really beautiful, well, we have many similarities, but we have this one similarity, and she has really encouraged me with this, and I wanted to share it. I had immense guilt over, going into administrative life and not being able to play as much. And certainly, like, how will I practice if I don't do a 27-minute warm up? And Ava was like, you don't need to warm up that much. You know how to play the flute. Like, you know how to solve the issues. You know how to do the things. And we both kind of laughed about this. And then I thought, she's totally right. I know how to pick up my flute. I know how to sound good. I'm playing for the dog in the other room, or I'm playing for the husband in the other room. Like, nobody's hearing me. Just enjoy the time that you have. If it's 15 minutes, don't spend 12 of it on a long tones. Just go play some melodies, go play a little Bach if you want. Enjoy the time. And we are all of us in this room, we were trained. Do your long tones, do your scales, do your, do your Toffanel Gobert, do the things that your teacher told you to do. And maybe it's okay if you don't do that every day anymore. Maybe you just play because you like to play. So that's what I do now. I pick up my favorites, French music and Bach, and I just play. And if something goes a little awry, I say, I know how to fix that. I know how to relax my body. I know how to breathe. I know how to use my air, and I move on. And I don't obsess about it anymore because it's fine. Like, so maybe it's okay to be so, your lives are full, and some of you are still, knee deep in raising families or, with your lives. It's okay to practice for 15 minutes. What if you're retired though, and you're like, I don't know what to do now? You can even do one of those little show of hands or a little thumbs up. How many of you are like at a place where you're feeling, I don't even know what to play anymore because I don't really have an outlet for my playing? Is anyone dealing with that? Little thumbs up with the react at the bottom of the screen.
And I can, meanwhile, I can talk about to the practice again. So I think for me is practicing is going the whole day. I'm thinking holistically. So I breathe the entire day, don't I? So when I start being aware, I'm sitting on my computer, I'm breathing up here because I'm in my brain. Then I just stop for a minute and say, wait a minute, do I feel my feet? Or where is my breathing? Because if we breathe up shallow here, even for our computer work, we are not fully capable what we would be capable. So then the same thing is with your posture, and posture and breathing is the main thing for your flute playing. So when you really think of your posture, when we sit on our computers like for the whole day, just stand up and stretch, go for a walk, and even if it's going out in front of the door to stretch for a moment, I think it helps us to have reminders every now and then. Do I still breathe? Do I feel my feet? Where are my thoughts? And I think that will help us so much to already be there when we actually start playing. And then like Michelle described, like you diagnose yourself. You start playing wherever what you like. If you do something you like, what's happening? You relax. And when you relax, what's happening? You breathe deeper. When you breathe deeper, maybe your posture is adjusting too. That's kind of going forward backwards. So then you play and you suddenly feel, oh, these octaves are not going today. And I'm pretty sure everybody is on the screen today. You all know how to do exercises for octaves. Then you go back and say, okay, I need octaves today. But might be tomorrow you need chromatic scales because some spot on your, or octatonic scales might be a spot in your wind orchestra music is really hard, and then you do octatonic scales. So you're kind of tailoring more to what you really, really need. Instead of doing what the student is doing, they have to warm up because they have no experience with their body. They have no awareness. So increase your self-awareness during the day will help you to be ready to play the flute and diagnose what you need that day. That's my secret. Here it is.
That's great. There was a question in here. Well, actually, I asked a question before about who's struggling to find like an outlet for playing. And I think I'm kind of at that place too. I had a moment this past spring, which was kind of like a mind blow. So as a professional flutist, my whole life playing in orchestras and chamber music and traveling the world playing, suddenly I'm like, where am I playing anymore? Like, what am I doing to feel fulfilled in that way? There was a flutist that came to town to play in the Fort Collins Symphony, and she called me. She's like, "Hey, do you want to play duets?" And my former self would have been like, "Are you kidding me? I'm not gonna. No, I don't have time. No, I just practiced for 3 hours. Like, I don't." And so I don't live that life anymore. And I said, I would love to. We sat in this living room right here, and we played duets for 2.5 hours. I had a ball. So it took me like saying, it's okay that you're not that person before. And actually, the joy is still there. It just comes in different ways. So I thought I would share that because when someone mentioned, in the chat about finding opportunities to play.
Here is another truth. I really like that, Michelle. Like I talked about the 20s, I reached my first dream, and in the 30s, I got a house and a husband, and in the 40s, I started thinking, do I need to do this till I'm 65? And in the 50s, and that's now the point, I started relaxing. There were less expectations. So there's another thing. Be aware about your expectations. So if there are still expectations, do you still need them? Might be some of them, but do you need all of them? the same as you were 10 years or 20 years younger. It's a habit to think like that. So if you want to break your habit, you have to be aware about your expectation. So before you start playing, you just think, okay, what is my expectation today? Not my goal. That's different. My expectation, because expectation can be pressure. And under pressure, how do we play? Sometimes better, but most of the time for our practice session, it's better when we just like are in a relaxed situation. So just watch your expectations, write them down, and then you think about it. And things will change as you do that.
That's great. Tabitha has two questions. They're both just great, so I wanted to bring them up. What are some of your favorite book recommendations on midlife transitions? I just, this is maybe, was a sort of a secret accident, but I have to run a book club with like the university president and some scholars tomorrow. It's the things my life does now. I'm just like, I don't even know where I am. But I read this book called Range by David Epstein. And it's all about how generalists are actually smarter than specialists. And there's a whole chapter on Vivaldi, and it was like mind blowing about how the way Vivaldi taught the kids at the orphanage and how they all played every instrument from bassoon to viola to cello to flute, and how it made their range in who they were really quite extraordinary. I'll put the title in the chat here for you in a second, but I found the book really inspiring because it made me realize that as a musician, I had all these skill sets. And if you think of it, like they call it the T learning. So my skills went down this way as a musician. But then as I'm growing as a human, my skills are expanding to the top of the T. And so that's created this really well-rounded person who I feel a little more brave, like I can go forth and like, I think to myself, I'm a flutist. Why am I a vice provost now? I don't know anything about this stuff, but I do because we've been doing the T for so much of our career. So that's one I just finished, and I'll pop that in the chat. And Ava, do you have one that you like?
I have only German ones, so I don't think that really helps. But I can see if they are translated in English and then send it to the NFA so that they can have it on the website with our handout. But I was actually listening during like midlife, and I started in Tallahassee. I was in my midlife, right? I was listening to, I love audiobooks. I was listening to Harry Potter. So sometimes it's really good to listen to something completely different where you get distracted from it and just follow another adventure, you know, like that's not the question there was, but that's what at that time I did. And I was always interested in kind of meditation and religion stuff. So it deepened my spiritual side a lot. Just knowing that the energy, which was in my lower abdomen for creativity for a long time, really prominent, comes up and goes into the spiritual life. So I think anything in the spiritual direction can really be very helpful to transform this energy instead of losing it. So, but I look for some books and see if they are in English and let you know.
And I'm putting one in the chat that I've just started, and it seems fantastic. And of course, it fits our topic here quite beautifully. Happiness and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Life by Arthur Brooks. Yeah. And then Tabitha, you also asked about creative outlets. And actually that was something that we thought about. Well, it's in the self-assessment. So let me jump over to what's next for you all in our activities for you. But hobbies are actually really important. And sometimes us creative beings just need another way to be creative. So I do a lot of quilting now. I love art. I buy a lot of art. I go to museums and things like that. But the only way I really feel like I can fulfill my artistic like outlets in addition to flute is quilting. But I don't use patterns. I just literally make it up. So I guess you would call that improv quilting. So that's what I've been doing since the pandemic. In fact, I'll probably do some of that this afternoon because it's very fulfilling and it gives me and puts me in the zone like flute playing does. Ava, do you have things that you do?
Yeah, I have more than one. Like I starting being like by myself in the United States and within a foreign language, I started drawing a lot. So I first started doing mandalas, like pre kind of made mandalas, just colored them. But then I started doing mandalas by myself, and mostly before I go to bed, you know, just it calms me down. Like And I just started that again, actually. So I didn't do it for years. And the second one is like Mixang photography, which Mixang means the good eye and is a Buddhistic art form. And I took classes in that. So I also recommend, if you find a creative outlet, you can do it like Michelle and be like impro, do whatever you want, but you can also take classes in something else and meet people outside the music scene. I mean, a book club does the same, right? If you have a book club, it's really something different. So I think just whatever your interest is, go there and find a class and some peers, and it gives you a whole new direction and a whole new. For me, it was really seeing things. I had to see things different. That made me seeing life different. So it, in a certain way, prepared me then for where I'm now. Like, when do you retire and what do you do after retirement? So this phase, just to say that too, it's very different than when I came to the US, which it almost was from one moment to the other where I was, okay, now I'm going to the US. It's my 4th year of retirement and I'm still in decision making. So, but it's okay. It's a nice process and I don't have to do anything any longer. So I feel fulfilled.
I look forward to retirement, that's for sure. Okay, I keep the questions coming in. Feel free to speak out loud here. We saved the last 10 minutes for that. But if Virginia, if you would put into the chat the document that we sent ahead. So we created a self-assessment for you. And I love working, I do these self-assessments for undergrads. So we built one for people like us who are in the mid to later part of their lives. And this is a self-assessment that is not going to give you answers except for show you where you are in your moment. So this self-assessment will lead you through just pretty quick questions like check a box, and you can do this at your leisure. This is for you. This is not for us. This is for you to look at. So we have you looking at your skills. We have you checking off boxes on some of your professional skills. What are your skills and your personal qualities? Thank you for putting that. It's in the chat now, and you're free to download that and keep it for yourself. So you'll put checks in boxes where you think your personal qualities are really strong, maybe X's where you'd like to get a little bit better. You're going to ask your family and friends what you're good at. You're also going to, we're going to ask you questions that are kind of like, how much money do you want to make? What do you need to be comfortable? How many hours a week do you want to work? So maybe the money things, if you're in retirement, those aren't going to apply to you, so just cross them out. But maybe, how many hours in a week do you think you could comfortably work right now? Especially if you're retired and maybe you're volunteering, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, so on and so forth. Or maybe you're kind of hitting your 50s, your mid 50s like me, and you're saying, no, I'm full stride, I'm ready to keep working. So I'm ready to still do 40 hours a week, but I want to make a little bit more money doing it. We have questions on hobbies you'd like to explore. What does rest look like for you, and how much of it do you need? What brings you joy? And we are going to ask you in this self-assessment to check the statements that you agree with. And at the very end, there's questions to reflect upon, such as, is your life right now consistent with your personal values? If not, why? Do you see similarities or differences between your personal values and your work values? And if so, which ones? And then, of course, the famous one, where do you see yourself in 1 to 2 years, or where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is for you to have. Writing it down, I think, is such a strong exercise, and visually being able to take it in and then pulling it out in a year and seeing it will really help with this part of your journey. So can we open it up? We have 6 minutes left.
I have one more thing, like Michelle and me, as you can see, we are really passionate about that topic. And we are also working towards like some more free content at first, and also on like a whole week of content, hopefully in Tuscany, we are planning next year. And just so you know, keep maybe friend us on Facebook and you will see what we are doing, or just keep, how do you say it in English now? In tune, that's not the right thing.
Keep your eyes open for right. The stuff we're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, keep your eyes open. We are really passionate about it. And at this point, I also will say thank you so much for being here and also inspiring us with your questions and comments, and that you really play full out. That's fantastic. So we still have
Yeah.
question and answers, but take it and put it into your life. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where that leads you.
Yeah, we're very excited about this class. We've actually been in development since COVID. I'm thinking about this class. The teaser is Italy. It's a week. It's developing friendships. It's developing community, and finding yourself in this part of your life. So if that sounds interesting, yeah, keep your eyes open. We'll share through the NFA different classes like this that kind of lead to something like that if you're interested. So please, 5 more minutes of our time. If you would like to ask a question out loud or in the chat. Or a comment.
I have a comment. I'm Yvonne. I'm in Nashville. I'm retired. I made my living as a doubler in all the genres of music and then later taught. And I'm able to live on my fixed income right now. So, what I've done to stay completely involved in music is join 2 separate community bands in my area. And with the IMSLP free music available, I've recruited 1 bassoon, 2 flutes, and 2 clarinets from those groups who will meet with me individually, each one for duets. So I'm playing bassoon and flute duets, and then clarinet flute and clarinet flute and flute and flute and flute and flute, just with all the levels. I mean, there's so much difficult music there. We are really scouring it. And we are playing as volunteers in the Vanderbilt waiting area for the Cancer Center. And those people love it. They are just so grateful. And we also are in a private facility for memory care patients. And again, it's volunteer work, but we chose to do it that way. We're not asking for any compensation, but we play for about an hour and they're so grateful. And we're doing that. The bassoonist won't go with me yet. She's still a little shy. She's in her 80s. But the clarinet and flutes are on board. And so we're doing Christmas music in December, but the rest of the time it's Coomer and like all the guys, Mozart, all the guys, you know, and they will play for about an hour and they're fine. And then they're tired and they go back, and it just breaks up the day for these people that are appreciative. So I thought I'd throw that out. There's so many places you could go if you can afford the time and the free playing. I used to not get my horn out of the case unless I was getting paid, but it's different now.
Yeah, you're right. It is different, and it's actually fun, isn't it? Great.
More
Yvonne, that's a
fun.
wonderful story. I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else want to share anything, ask a question, make a comment?
You also feel free to write us. I think our email addresses are anyway on the NFA list, and we should write it in the chat again. We would be really happy to hear from you. Also, when you want to ask a question. You forgot the E at Amsler, right?
Oh, I did. I'll edit it. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you again. And thank the NFA too.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the NFA.
And Virginia to help us to do all of this on Zoom. That's wonderful.
Still,
it right?
I'll go ahead and close this out. So thank you again to Ava and Michelle, and thank you to everyone who attended today's online event. A recording of this event will be published on the NFA YouTube channel later this week. Our next online event is going to be a guide to creating the Ron Paul School's magical phrasing and tone color with Cheryl Cohen, and that's going to be on November 3rd. To learn more about us, visit our website at nfaonline.org or follow us at NFA Flute on social media. Thank you again to everyone.